Hey guys, Professor Bill of Comic Book University, and in this week's Marvel Superheroes Advanced role-playing game system, we're actually not going very advanced because we're talking about the realms of magic. So in this, I'm actually going to be turned to page 11, and we're going to be talking about the character's talents. Okay, so in character creation way back when, these are a little bit different. One of these I'm just going to completely ignore. I'm going to talk about it, but personally, my recommendation is to ignore them. But we're going to be talking about talents. Now, how do I rectify this when I've already done mental and mystical talents from the advanced book? Very simply, like this. Those are talents that anybody can get. But these talents that are in this book right here are talents that only a magic user has access to. Oh, how you like me now. So let's get started on some of these, all right? Bibliophile is the very first one. I know you're thinking the word biblio, that means the Bible, right? Ish. See, biblios is actually a word that stems from the Greek, which means book. So it means any book. Biblios means any book. They simply say the Bible, meaning the book. So anyway, Bibliophile. The character has an extensive knowledge of magical books, scrolls, and other primarily informational texts, and the lore concerning them. He has +2 column shifts when using or researching these. So anytime that you got a bunch of, like the Woojin from the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the all the Oriental Adventures, as they were called back then in the 80s, you would have +2 column shifts when you're talking about researching scrolls and ancient texts and these old books and dusty old tomes. You're going to have +2 column shift to find the information that you're looking for. That is very cool. You could basically be a magical librarian. All right. The next one up, a chronicler of magic. So the character studies magical societies and their activities. He or she has +2 column shift for researching and or knowing who the adepts and masters are, what their relationship is to each other, and with any beings that they entreat, and for specific facts about most magical cults. The judge may wish to modify this if they go out of their way to keep them secret. Here's the deal. So basically, if you want to know, if you find out about this guy named Earththorpe the Enchanter, you'd be like, Earththorpe? I've never heard of Earththorpe. And you go to the character who actually has the Chronicler of Magic talent. This person is able to say, Earththorpe. So maybe they'll have to refer back to some books. You're going to get a +2 if you have Bibliophile. But either way, you're just going to be thinking about it, and all of a sudden, oh, yes, okay. Earththorpe, his master is actually Freaknik, the fruit flinger. Just whatever, okay? You're going to be able to determine who did what. It's like, oh, this person was actually banished. They're probably still banished in such and such place, Maybe come to find out that, what's his name, Kalu, actually, when he was stuck in the dimension of Ragador, that somebody else was trapped there also, and she had the opportunity to learn from Kalu. So all of a sudden, aha, this person studied with Kalu, so I know how to beat them because such and such and such. So yeah, maybe you'll know how this great entity was defeated way back in the day. So you'll have an idea of the background of some of these things. In some ways, I guess I would have this talent because I know about the difference between the Wiccans and some of the different sects within Wicca, the 2 major sects of the Church of Satan. So the Church of Set also. I know about the Ordo Templi Orientalis and how that stemmed from the Golden Dawn and who a lot of the original masters were in these ideas. It was Anton LaVey that started Anton Zandar LaVey that started the Satanic Church. Then when Dr. Michael Aquinos came along, he changed around to the Temple of Set, but there's still the adherence to the original teachings of LaVey. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the sort of thing that you would understand if you actually studied these sort of things. You would know that in the modern day Church of Set, there are actually 5 different groups. They're all part of the same sect, but they do practice different things. All right, so you'd have the elements that they would be following, and therefore the different gods that they would follow. Like these are the kind of things that you would just know. So, oh, this person taught that person actually came from this school, but then went over to that school instead. So you would have this kind of an idea. This is a pretty good thing. So not just knowing the family tree, the genealogy and all that stuff, but you'd actually know a few things. Oh, these guys worshipped so-and-so. These guys are really good with this kind of dimensional magic. They probably have a contact with this and this being, but this guy hates that guy. That's something that you would probably be able to do. And as far as secret sects, like ones that actually go out of their way to be secret, nothing is secret. Nothing is secret. So maybe if you have a red feet, an unaltered red feet, you would know something about that group. And even without that, finding out certain things could lead you to come to the conclusion that they must have formed a new sect and nobody knows about this. Being able to report something like this to a high chronicler and be able to show proofs of such, that could wind up being worth a good amount of karma to a magic user. Okay, let's go into Demonologist. So Demonology is fun. The character has studied accounts of demons in the Marvel Universe and knows how dangerous and hostile they are. Ooh, I could have told you that. The character receives a +1 column shift in any situation involving demons, including research, communication, identification, and combat. The Miscellany of Magic contains more information on demons in the Marvel Universe. So that's in the later on pages of this particular book, The Realms of Magic. Okay, how about this? Marduk. Marduk back in the Babylonian mythology, the Mesopotamian mythology more specifically, went against Tiamat and threw the wind, the evil wind inside of Tiamat's mouth, and fired an arrow between her jaws and boom, blew it up and therefore blew away her head. This is the mother of all monsters, the demon of the freshwaters. I think she was the demon of the freshwaters. Anyway, all of this being said, you would understand that Tiamat is dead but dreaming. Okay? Marduk learned of the 50 names of magic. Okay? Some of this stuff is commented on in the Necronomicon, but there are other books also that talk about this too, and just general mythology would know this. So the 50 names, all right? Name magic is a very interesting name magic. Case in point, if you see someone walking across the street, you're like, hey, you! Hey, jerk! Excuse me, sir! Whatever you're going to say, it's whatever. But if you know the person's name, you can actually freeze the person in their tracks. Think about that. Okay? One of the ways that you talk to people, and you can actually get people to do what you want or to intimidate someone, is to use their name often. Look, Stan, the way that I see it, Stan, is that you can't actually go to so-and-so's house because, and listen to me, Stan, if you do, I promise you, bad things will happen. You understand what I'm saying? Having a name is a very, very great boon, and it gives you power over someone else, especially if they don't know your name. This is actually the way that we were first introduced to Dr. Voodoo, Brother Voodoo, all right? The reason why he would call himself Brother Voodoo is because he doesn't want anybody to know his actual name. So this is very crucial to things like, what do you call it? For crying out loud, voodoo. But more than that, Enochian magic, angelic magic. When John Dee was doing some scrying, he was able, and he scryed in a triangle as opposed to a circle, okay? He was scrying and he looked and he found names of angels. That gave him power over them. Now imagine learning the names of demons or even daemons, okay, like the lesser version of demons. This would allow you to conjure them and summon them and things like this. So, and anytime that you're going to try and use any kind of a mental control over someone else, having this ability, this talent, should give you +1 column shift, even if the person is not a demon. So I'm expanding on this in a major way. Knowing someone's true name, the name that they actually respond to. All right, my name is William. That's what's on my birth certificate. But Bill is something else. But knowing my full name, first, middle, and last name, knowing what I actually respond to, right? We're talking about your parents at this point screaming at you. When your mother yells your full name, you freeze. I don't care how damn old you are, son. You know it's true. So, consider that. Knowing someone's full, true name is something else. Angels and demons will often give a false name, but demonology will allow you to find that true name. So, let's look at something to the effect of martial arts A, B, and C. Get out of town with that old stuff. Plus, there's D and E. So they do have, if you're going to roll for your own talent, they have normal talents, go back over there, or new talent, make your own stuff up. Yeah, I'll make my own stuff up when I choose to. So let's go to Occultist. The character has made extensive studies in the area of occult happenings, including unexplained events and mysteries in the world, hauntings, and other manifestations of the spirit world, and has +2 column shifts when researching or dealing with occult events. Now, I've already kind of dealt with this a little bit, but this is a little bit different. So you can generally make it exactly like it says there, and different than what I've said in the mental and mystic talents section that I gave in the prior playlist to this, the prior series for Marvel Superheroes Advanced Role-Playing Game, is that this is kind of like the occult detective that I suggested with occult lore. This is somewhat different. But not enough different as far as I'm concerned, but just enough. I would say +2 column shifts, but you're only dealing with items of mystical nature, or not even items, more like rumors. Okay, so you know the difference between rumors and superstitions. You know that the East Coast is famous for the Jersey Devil, and mermaids seem to be a big deal over there. You know, and you'll know the names of the 7 sons of the 7 sons. You'll understand a lot of what's going on there. You'll know the lore and the legend when you go to a different place. So a lot of this is like a superstition kind of thing. So let's say you go someplace and there's some crazy thing happening. You'd be like, wait a second, I'm familiar with this story. This is the Baba Yaga. So you'll figure all these things out before she flies at you in her cauldron. That is what this talent should probably be most used for. Now, let's look at something to the effect of Runesmith. Now this one, now we're going to have some fun. I got a lot to say about this. The character is a transcriber and translator of runes, especially ancient magical runes. A rune is a letter in an ancient alphabet. Most magical items have runes on them to warn potential users of possible harm that the items can cause. These runes can be any one of a vast array of almost forgotten codes. The character has +2 column shift whenever studying, deciphering, or inscribing runes. Yes, but let's take it a step further. You will specialize. Okay, this is my headcanon. Feel free to use this. You will specialize in one kind of rune. So when you want to transcribe runes from any rune all over the place, sure, +2 column shifts, okay? But everybody was brought up on if you're a magic user, everybody was brought up on one specific kind of rune. Obviously, if you're of the Norse pagan religion, you're going to know regular runes. Futhark is that language. If you are druidic, you'll know Ogam. That's the language that is even more forgotten from way back when. Maybe you know some old Sanskrit if you're in the India area. Okay, wherever you're from, you know the language of this primitive form, this ancient, almost forgotten, all right, sometimes no longer recorded language from way back in the day. Navajo can be considered one of those, at least during the World War II times, because that language was never actually written down. So, and look at all the amazing things that they did with the Navajo language during World War II. These were our best spies. So, just consider that you have a specialty in one language or another. And what's more is that you should be able to scry with these in some way, shape, or form. So, once per game in your native language, it's not even a tongue, but it could be. You could absolutely communicate with someone else in your runic form. You see in the comic books once in a while, they'll actually speak in these. Like Fear itself, they'll actually speak in these runes, right? There's a way to speak in them that doesn't seem very obvious when you just know how to read and write them, okay? So that's one thing. But on top of that, the idea that you'll be able to actually scry a little bit. Kind of like clairvoyance, but a little bit different. Let's say you practice voodoo. You'd be able to cast bones. You'd be able to cast the Futhark runes if you were a pagan. If you're, let's say if you're an Arab, and you're doing the Bedouin magic, the Numidic magic, you would cast arrows, and divine the arrows that way. If you're in the Taoist religion, you'd be looking at your tea leaves, okay? But let's say you're looking at your tea leaves, and all of a sudden somebody, what do you call it? And here's you get your +2 with this. You would still get you'd still be able to transcribe, but not with your pluses. You would get no pluses. But you'd be able to, let's say, look at somebody's hand and read their palm. You know what I'm saying? If you grew up with palmistry, you're +2 accomplishments with palmistry. But you get no bonuses when you're dealing with other form of runes, so to speak. But you can at least read them. So your +2 column shift to read and write your own. But as far as reading and writing someone else's, anyone else's, everyone else's, you get no benefit. So what? That's just like any other talent, right? Either you got it or you don't. No. You can't even attempt to read. You get no roll, no negatives, whatever. You don't even get an attempt if you don't know at least one of these runic languages, if you do not actually have Runesmith as a talent. So there's that. More than that, once per game, if you've actually made your own arrows or tea leaf thing, whatever it is that you're going to do, maybe you're going to use numerology. Numerology is one of them, absolutely. Whatever, maybe gypsy magic, you'd cut an apple open and look at the placement, the star placement of the seeds, There's all sorts of different ways to do this. But you would find your way of Runesmith and using not somebody else's way, your way that you were brought up with. You'd be able to get a roll for yourself once per game. A white gives you, let's say, a +0. But a green +1, a yellow +2, and obviously a red +3. You get to roll this, and you get to keep this with you for the day. And you can use this for any one feat that you choose. That's right. During the course of that gaming session, not an encounter, not a game day, whatever, that gaming session, you get to have one time this advantage. So that you could just, okay, guys, this is going to be the most important roll of the day, for me at least. I'm going to roll ahead, and somebody says, hey, don't forget you got your scrying. You say, oh, that's right. So that one game, let's say if in the beginning of the game, you rolled while looking at your, cut open apple, or your cast bones, and it gave you a plus, you got in the yellow. I would say you don't get to add karma to this, but then again, why wouldn't you? Who knows? Who cares? Sure, maybe you can add karma to this, but you get to use that +2 for the yellow at one point during your game. So if we understand what I'm saying, in the beginning of every game session, you're going to roll as long as you actually have access to whatever your divining ability is, and that'll give you a +0, +1, +2, or +3, depending on what you roll, respectively. And you just get to hold on to that. So write down, like, if you rolled in the red, yay, you get a 1 +3. One time, you get a +3. Hold that with you. And then once during that gaming session, you get to say, Judge, I'm going to add this to my roll. And you get a +3 column shift to whatever. I don't care what it is. That's what you get. A lot of times, they'll do this for someone else. So, like, let's say tarot cards, right? Runesmithing could be tarot cards. Let's say you're going to, you're good at tarot cards or bones, whatever. You're going to let someone else cast. Okay. They cannot spend karma on this roll because this is you doing it. Should that player be able to use karma? Maybe. Sure, why not? Why shouldn't that player be able to use karma? But that player is using their own karma, even though they're rolling for someone else. this person's going to make their roll. They cannot add karma. Maybe you can add karma. But you get to roll for someone else also. The problem is it's never as good for someone else. It's never as good for someone else. So a white would be a -1. A green would be a 0. You'd have a +1 and a +2 for yellow and red respectively. Now you might say, well, then they would never use it if it was a -1. Well, they'd never use it if they knew what it was. You have them take the percentile dice, go up and roll behind your GM screen, or hold up a little washcloth or a dish towel over top of their wrist while they're making the roll, and then cover the die right away. When they pull their hand out, you take a look, write it down, give them the poker chip or whatever so they know you can use this at any time you want. And then maybe they're going to use it. Maybe it's a -1. Maybe it's a nothing. Maybe it's whatever. But the idea is that they know, okay, this is where my destiny comes into place. This person looked into the future and said, hey, at some point, and they gave you some kind of a, fortune cookie type of mentality. And then all of a sudden, you get to use this whenever you choose to during that gaming session. So think about this. Maybe you can use that for your resource feat if you're an engineer. Because resources, just go back and look at my gadgeteering playlist and you'll understand where I'm coming from on that. So, absolutely, you can do something like that. Now, as far as the player using his or her own karma, why would they do that? Maybe this person negotiates with them. Another way you can get around this, and here's an opportunity to use the leadership talent, because I love the idea of my leadership talent. My cat is puking. She gets hairballs once every 2 weeks. Happens. So, anyway, let's say you've got the leadership talent. If the character with the leadership talent is actually the leader of your group, then the player character can use karma from the karma pool. All right? So from the team group karma pool. So you can simply say, oh, hey, you can't use karma for me to make your roll for you. Okay, you make the roll, you can't actually use karma, but if you want to use karma, you want to throw an extra 50 karma points, put it into the group pool, and then I'll take from the group pool, and that's what I'll do. So one extra benefit for having having somebody who has the leadership talent, and that person is the actual acting leader of your group. Just saying. So, what do we got here? After that, we've got Scholar of Antiquities. So, the character has an extensive knowledge of antiques, especially ancient magical artifacts and lore concerning them, but not including books, scrolls, and other artifacts that are primarily informational. That would be back there with Bibliophile. So here, he or she has +2 column shifts when dealing with them or researching them. So, let's say you're basically just an archaeologist. This is the one where I pretty much turned arcane lore into something along this line. For me, this is really just no different. It's exactly like I explained there in mental and mystical abilities. For all intents and purposes, this is just you are a magical archaeologist. By magical, I don't mean that you necessarily have magical abilities, but you should if you have this talent here. But either way, you have the ability to look at magical artifacts and say, oh, hey. So it's much like casting Detect Magic or Identify in Dungeons & Dragons. All right? That's really all this is. And I've already gone into exasperating detail in the mental and mystical abilities, talking about arcane lore. So there's that. Okay, stamina. Yeah, this one's just flat out dumb. Because, and that's no insult on the book or anything like that, but everything that the stamina ability has, which is basically you can go up to 6 days without food or sleep. All of that's already covered in trance, and trance gives you way more. So ignore this, please. Pretty please. With magic on top. Zoologist for magic. Okay, basically, this is like animal handling for magical creatures. I'm not even going to bother getting into that. It's +1 column shift for magical creatures. But this is learning them. As far as I'm concerned, this is also animal handling. Okay? If you've ever seen Harry Potter and you've seen Hagrid, or if you've seen Magical Creatures and Where to Find Them, I think it's called, the latest that they're doing with Harry Potter, bud, that's exactly what it is. You want to be a magical zoologist? Boom, congratulations, here you go. There's your talent. So that's pretty much it. All right. This is magical talents. Again, these should only be for characters who actually have some kind of magical ability. Not have a magical weapon, not having been blessed with magical enhancements for their abilities and magical powers. No, no, no. You're actually a spell user in some way, shape, or form. You actually belong to any of these schools of magic. That's how you should be able to have access to these particular talents in this book. And that's that. All right, guys. Keep on gaming. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.